issues there. So I'm just going to get right to the topics here. And I just went live on the main channel. So if you're joining now, I've already gone live. You're joining in the middle. I'm reading an article from Todd Davis on Scoon TV about the unspoken horrors, but specifically why were tanks brought in. That's where we're picking this up. In a half an hour, I'm going to be bouncing from this channel, going over to friend of show Ray Studios. I just forgot to go live on the main channel. It's kind of funny. But so I'm jumping in the article talking about what's the deal with the tanks that they're talking about. It's an escalation for sure. So they're going through the history of it. I'm going through this article. Contemporary strategic thinking wasn't in accord with the role of the tank. Some advocated for its continued use, while others felt the tank was increasingly expensive and obsolete. So I just covered that again, just for people joining. That is the good place to start. These tanks can be taken out by weapons that don't cost as much. And that's the problem. We're doing Call of Duty, real life, no spawning, real unliving, real strategy. What do they call them? I forgot even what the term is for them, the StarCraft type games. I used to play those. This is the real life version. So going further, they talked about that many thought the day of the tank was over. Russia even abandoned 5 of its most advanced tanks because there's the cost to put into the tank is not worth it because they can be taken out pretty easily. To my knowledge, I'm not an expert here. I'm learning from following all these people on Twitter and these other war type message boards. Because of breakdowns in the supply system, they cut off these tanks, one of them the T-90. Supply chains are even more important than firepower when determining the success or failure of armored offensive, period, in war. Money and the supply chain are the most important. That's why you see us sending more and more money to the sunflower country. You burn through that money like nothing. Tanks get taken out. You're talking about millions of dollars. Bam, gone, 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 gone. The Russians were mocked by the West because of these troubles. Military observers pointed out that the Russians didn't know how to conduct mobile warfare, conveniently admitting that no one had conducted mobile warfare on a battlefield against a major military power in 8 decades. So this is all just in the ether. It's on paper that you need to have this mobile warfare unit. And now it's coming to fruition in front of our eyes. Meanwhile, the sunflower country was having its own problems. They began the war with one of the world's largest tank forces, numbering nearly 2,500 vehicles. So the sunflower country had 2,500 vehicles, tanks, it looks like here from the article. It encountered all the problems Russia was having and more. Russia has some of the best infantry anti-tank weapons in the world. I just find this fascinating and just learning where this is where the money's going. This is where the tanks are literally going. Irregular insurgents across the globe have knocked out modern Challenger 2s and Leopard 2s with Russian-made cornets. So these are the weapons that I'm not familiar with that are taking out the tanks, and they're cheaper than the tanks. So you're losing money. You're burning through money, much less lives, pretty quickly. In the hands of Russian regulars facing the armor that made up the bulk of Sunflower Country's tank force, countless of their tanks were destroyed. So this is a report. I don't know how true or not this stuff is. I can't verify. Thank you, Cindy Lou, for stopping by. I'm just going through I just found this article really well laid out. Really well laid out about, hopefully you find it interesting, about why we're sending tanks over. I've been reading New York Times, all these other articles. I haven't gotten anything this, edifying on the topic. America rushed Stinger and Javelin anti-tank weapons to the Sunflower Country to counter the Russian armor. Javelin was the first wonder weapon touted by the media covering the war. This was the game changer that would stop the Russians. As the war progressed, we began to hear less about javelins, primarily because they were ineffective for two reasons. The first is that the Sunflower Country soldiers didn't have the training to maximize their effectiveness. And I believe that's why they were brought here. I believe they were brought here to Georgia to be trained, some of them. I have to go follow up on that article. The second is that they're extremely expensive. The cost of these weapons is everything. It's a chess game. I will give you my pawn if I can take your knight, pretty much every time. A trained U.S. soldier operating the javelin would be expected to score a hit 19% of the time on a tank. The Sunflower Country, unfamiliar and untrained on the weapon, was hitting the Russian tanks at a 5% rate. So that's not going to cut it. A javelin missile costs $250,000 export costs. For every 100 shots the Sunflower Country took, they were hitting 5 Russian tanks at a cost of $25 million. By comparison, the Russian-made Cornet cost $26,000. So they're out efficient. They're being more efficient. Cost and effectiveness aren't the only factors that drove javelins from the headlines. Now, this shows me I don't know why, I never really looked at, I played these video games and looked at it as a financial thing, because in a lot of these video games, and I hate to bring it to video games because we're talking about real life. What's up, Ray? I'm going to go live with Ray in about 20 minutes. Ray's going to give me the link, and we'll try to get over to his Rumble channel. Or is it YouTube or Rumble, Ray? I was assuming it's your Rumble channel. But going through this article, I might not have time to go through the other topics, but because this article is just crazy. But playing these video games, you have limited resources, unless you turn on unlimited resources. In that case, it's not even really warfare. It's just a fantasy world. You have limited resources. So if I put 50% of my resources in a bunch of tanks and the other person can destroy those tanks with a quarter of their resources, it's only a matter of time. The game's over. That's when people usually rage quit. There's no rage quitting in this. This is real life. The cost and effectiveness aren't the only factors, though, that drove these javelins from the headlines. Supply is a major issue. This warfare is just a business. How are you going to pump out more and more of these tools of war for you to acquire territory or to accomplish your mission? You need the money and you need the supply chain to get them from one place to the other, to produce them, and all of that. That's why it's so expensive. And that's why if this keeps on going, you and I will be involved more than just money somehow. You're looking at the economy tanking. I think that is in part money being sucked out indirectly. This is a correction. That's why I was not very, enthusiastically happy when Disney, for example, their stock dropped. And I was looking at it and I was like, I saw people, like even people I respect, like Eric July and others, like, oh man, look at Disney's stock dropping. But when you look at it, everybody's stock was dropping. That's not something to celebrate. And I don't celebrate anybody's stock dropping, period. It's just not a good thing for me to celebrate. I just don't like the karma from it. But if Disney stock is dropping and everybody's stock is dropping, then there's nothing unusual happening with Disney. Money's getting sucked out and there's a reshaping here. And that's why you saw in prior wars, they literally had to get people into factories. We don't have that set up. We don't have that infrastructure now. So I don't know what it's going to look like, but if it keeps going like this, you and I and everybody's going to get dragged in somehow, some way in making something, doing something. That's the only way you can keep this up. Supply is a major issue. The United States had an inventory of about 20,000 of these javelins. 7,000s were sent to the Sunflower Country. Currently, the U.S. purchases about 1,000 a year, although the maximum production is closer to 6,500. So you're seeing the supply chain issues. However, and they're more expensive than what the Russians are using. Not a good situation. However, this isn't something that one can drive down to a show and buy in bulk. There is a 32-month manufacturing period required by the defense contractor to LM to supply them. Exorbitant costs, low hit rates, and a long production time made the Javelin ineffective in this war. It's ineffective in the conflict. So they're moving on. Similar pattern runs through all the weapons America has supplied to the Sunflower Country, whether they're these M777s, HIMARS, and these other shells that I'm not familiar with these things. I just find this very fascinating. These are the discussions really should be had more in the open to me. American weapons are too expensive, too few in number, take too long to make, and are having a difficult time performing in the harsh climate and terrain of the Eastern Sunflower Country. The grab bag that NATO is funneling into the Sunflower Country is in even worse shape since none of these nations have the economy or industrial capacity to replace weapons sent to the main city there. And virtually every weapon sent to the Sunflower Country is captured or destroyed. Russia has already eliminated 2 of the armies there. The February 2022 standing army that NATO had been arming and training, and the reconstituted version of this army that was resupplied by the United States and the group that we're in the summer of 2022. I'm not making any determination on picking sides or anything like this. I'm just talking about the strategy of this whole situation. The first army was destroyed by the Russians during the initial intervention, and the second was lost during the other parts. I try to avoid to say these cities or their territories or states there in the Sunflower Country. Both public relations wins, but a strategic failure for the Sunflower Country. Captured equipment has been sent back to Moscow, Tehran, and probably Beijing. CCP is not far away from anything happening in the world for study and reverse engineering. They want to figure out how they're made, what are they doing, how do we make them better, how do we make them cheaper. Further, the quality of the Sunflower Army has degraded over the past year, even though from what I'm seeing, they are some bad MFers, the Sunflower Country, whether they're Yahtzees or not. When it comes to kinetic battle like this, it doesn't matter if you're in a foxhole next to a Yahtzee or not. You're in a foxhole with a dude that y'all better work together to figure it out. And that's what's happening over there. They are some bad MFers. They are likes to fight guy. Scrolling on down, they're going to get to the tanks here in a bit. Still, the West must do something. They have all pledged to support the Sunflower Country no matter what it takes. The group the United States is basically running is no longer making rational strategic decisions. That's an opinion from this article from Todd Davis. I wouldn't know either way. The only logical move now is to make peace with Russia. I don't know. If you can still burn through money, they're not going to rush to a peace deal. Instead, we're making decisions based on anger and emotion. They're angry that the economic sanctions haven't worked. I don't know about that. I just don't. There's nothing that you don't think they didn't know that they weren't going to work, Todd. I wish I could ask them that. You really think that they thought it would work? I don't think they would. I don't think that. They are angry that the Sunflower Country can't defeat the Russians. Do you think they ever thought that? Early on, we had Lloyd Austin and Milley. What they were saying is this was going to be prolonged. It wasn't going to be short. They weren't really saying the Sunflower Country is going to be victorious, were they? So it is going to be on the Rumble channel in about 15 minutes. I'll be off of this. So it'll probably be just one topic. The real life and better stop poking. Yeah, this is real life. Thank you, Cindy Lou. And we better stop poking the bear. Yeah, it's not about, there's no winners in these conflicts. Nobody wins. So we can't come from the standpoint and think, oh, well, the U.S. could beat Russia. What does that mean? That means both people lose. No winners here. We're getting closer to that direct issue, and that's not a good place. But yes, this is the whole situation here. We're continuing on with the article. Once considered a red line that the group that we're in didn't want to cross, as it would be rightly viewed that if we supplied main battle tanks to the Sunflower Country, it would be directly involved in the conflict. But there was a massive push this month for countries in the alliance to get into their inventories and send tanks over there. Russia, after months of grinding down, has begun advancing and taking key cities. They mobilized reserves, have been fully incorporated into the forces, and they got their civilian and defense industry to streamline the delivery of tanks, planes, shells, and artillery to the front line. So this is the opinion, or through the information of Todd Davis here, that the Russians are making some moves here. Since the production has increased significantly since the war in 2022, they produced 200 high-end tanks and modernized other 800 prior generation tanks. There's not a single country in the group that we're with that has the infrastructure in place to produce them on the level of Russia. That includes the U.S. So we're in a place where we don't have we don't have any manufacturing. Like you look at World War II, where everybody had a hand in manufacturing. That was the economy. The economy flipped over to you're manufacturing these pieces or this piece of this weapon to go into battle. And that was your help, even if you didn't get called over, you didn't go to fight. We don't even have it set up for us to do that here. The immense buildup, so what happens? The immense buildup of the Russian men and equipment has put the Sunflower Country at a strategic disadvantage. This war hasn't been fought with tank armies, but with artillery. Russia has consistently held an 8-1 advantage over the Sunflower Country in the number of artillery pieces it can bring to bear. As much as credit I gave the Sunflower Country, the Russia likes to fight guy too. They're the same. They're like cousins out there. They're neighbors. Artillery pieces that it can bring to bear. Infantry cannot advance into the face of artillery without tanks. So it's just you've got people on the battlefield, and you can't advance forward without some backup. And armored fighting vehicles flagging support for the Sunflower Country among the West can only be shored up by conjuring these victories. The Sunflower Country has to have tanks to maintain the appearance of victory. And what I think this is to draw it out as long as possible. The nations then played their familiar game. The Baltic states, Poland demanded everything be sent. Everyone talked in circles, hesitating, double talking, and procrastinating. This was mainly because all their military advisors said sending Western tanks to the Sunflower Country wouldn't stop Russia from winning. I don't know if I think they're just trying to delay and prolong it. There's nothing that's going to really from what I'm reading, stop Russia from whatever you call winning unless it's a direct involvement. And if that were the case, then you would have the Third World War, because Russia wouldn't be going by themselves, in my opinion. Iran is a part of that too. So let's keep going. Germany tried to stall, stating it would send Leopards if the U.S. would send some, the jewel of the American ground forces. No one in the Pentagon wants these tanks to be captured and destroyed in the region, the eastern region. But America, always clever, bordering on devious when it comes to coercing its allies in this war, finally pledged that it would send 31 of these tanks to the Sunflower Country. This opened the door for Germany to grudgingly promise this stuff. If this is true, and I think this article is right, if Germany is grudgingly, Germany should be more. Why are we more invested than Germany is? If the big concern, the people were selling that Russia is going to come through the Sunflower Country and then keep on going west, which I'm not buying, but either way, it ain't my business. It ain't got nothing to do with me. But why would Germany be grudgingly? I hope that's not true. I'm not proclaiming that I know it to be true. The headlines flooded out Western tanks to the Sunflower Country and that it was going to win. I don't know if I saw that it was going to win anywhere, other than just randos on social media. Did anybody proclaim that it was going to win? I don't know if I heard that. Reality is rarely what we see and even less what we read. The U.S. isn't sending these tanks. It is putting in a production order for it. that will take months to years to fill. By the time those tanks receive their final coat of paint, it's unlikely Sunflower Country in its current form will still exist. So that I found that very interesting as well. I have to read more about that. But yeah, it's saying that a lot of these won't get there potentially by the time this conflict is hopefully resolved. There's the German Leopards needing refitting and won't arrive until late spring or early summer. Even if everything's tabulated, all 8 from Norway, 2 from Canada, 10 from Spain, and so on are collected together. You ever play these games where you're playing it with multiple people and you might be in a battle with somebody? And I used to play these in 96, through 2000 in Ann Arbor, Michigan. We'd be in the computer lab playing StarCraft or what was it was a Red Alert, I believe, was one of them too. And I'd be like, man, I'm under attack. Somebody sent over tanks. That's exactly what we're seeing here. Thanks, GB, for the show, always for coming back. Been a minute since I've been able to catch a live. Thanks, yes. I'm going to be on live for just about 10 more minutes, then we're going to go try to get the link. I want to put the link in the chat if you guys want to hang out. Me and friend of the show, Ray Studios, we are going to have a lit live on his Rumble. I want to help him get his Rumble off and running as much as I can. So this video is really a lead into that, but I'm covering this topic about these tanks. You play LGB, you played those. GB said, I played those games, StarCraft, Red Alert, Dark Reign, Age of Empires. I never played Dark Reign or Age of Empires, heard of them, but I played StarCraft a lot. Now, the stupid thing about StarCraft is we would play every time on unlimited resources. I think that's kind of stupid to play like that. And I would always like the humans, the Terrans. I think, is that how you pronounce them? I haven't played it in a long time. I never played StarCraft 2, only the first one. And I was the Terrans, so I would have the tanks. I would have the tanks, and they would come in, and I believe they had to be rooted down to fire strong, so they had a weakness. They were stationary when they were at their best. But I remember it was the Protoss. You don't want to play Protoss. This is inside stuff. On this video game, there's this alien race that they build really quickly. Well, the Zerg built quicker, but you could build these blimps that would just come through and ravish an area. So people would play on unlimited resources, just defend their base and do nothing but build these big blimps and then go out and just ravish everything. But it is, I mean, really, this war it looks like Call of Duty. It looks like those games when I'm watching the video. But it's just, I mean, it's really breathtaking to see life or death. I mean, it's just nothing. Go on Twitter, look for them. You'll find these videos. It's unbelievable to watch. So let me go through this article again. Hopefully you find this interesting. I'm going to go through this article. It's just really, sometimes articles just hit me and I'm like, man, I really absorbed this article. And the Russians are producing their tanks at wartime levels. Hundreds are being moved into the war zone. So you're going to need to bring some resources. Russia has a vast supply of weapons capable of destroying the enemy. So they're bringing in their own tanks. They've got weapons capable of destroying their enemy tanks. They have all these new missiles and all that. It can do this right here said it can do so due to warheads installed into one missile. The rocket explodes twice. The first warhead destroys the active upper layers of armor, while the other warhead explodes a millisecond after the first. Man. And from what I've been reading, there's new tanks that we have in the U.S. that have even better. It's like this secret armor that makes it even better. But I don't think those are the ones that are being sent over from the article I read separate from here. Eventually, we're going to see if the NATO tanks fight the Russians, a prospect that was conceivable only in, and we're getting to the end of the article here, in a Tom Clancy novel or a war game prior to this depending crisis. So he's talking basically like me, a video game movie type stuff. NATO tanks are too few in number, can't be replaced, and won't stop the Russians. And so the next round of escalation will start. This is the concern. The Sunflower Country is already asking for F-16s. Eventually, it will get them. After Russian MiGs are fighting NATO planes and Russia is still winning, where do we escalate next? Man, I really liked that that article. I don't mean to, um, frighten anybody or anything like that. This is just, I just find it interesting since we're sending so much money over there, so much time invested over there, and we're clearly escalating over there. Um, it just it just makes me wonder, like, what's the next step? Because this happens. So what does Russia do to escalate? If these tanks actually help, what would they do? There was this crazy video on Twitter that simulated what a nuclear cloud would look like. It was unbelievable. It showed, like, if you were on the ground and there was a nuclear cloud that exploded. It We are closer to that, and I think we've got to put the party stuff aside and find ways to step away from that. Let me know what you think. StarCraft 2 was lit, huh? I never played it, not even once, not even a little bit. So I watched a little bit of professional players and playing it, but I never played it myself. It's kind of weird. I think I actually downloaded it one day or whatever. I might even have purchased it and never played it. Why are we, Cindy Lou says, Call of Duty real life, why? Why are we all about UK and not the US? I think we have a deep corruption that needs to be unveiled, and that's what's happening. People are skimming money off the top, and I think they know the Titanic of the CCP becoming the new world leader, and other things are going to happen to change the shape of the world. And I think they're trying to skim money off the top, and for whatever reason. Because they also have children too. I mean, a lot of these people who are making moves, some of them don't, but some of these politicians and others have children too. So they would have the same concerns that you and I would if you have children being brought up in the world right now. So thanks for the comment there. I will kind of go back and watch some video. I'm too far out the game to get into StarCraft and stuff. Was Destiny a professional StarCraft player? I know he was a professional video game player. But I'm going to be looking at more. We'll see what YouTube does with it. I'm hoping that YouTube doesn't get pissed off about the topic, because I'm not even really on that topic. I'm not even really taking sides on the. I'm just looking at the strategic stuff about it that we really don't hear much discussion about. I was more interested in that avenue. I'm going to get the link here from Ray, and then I'm going to see if we can jump over to the. I might put it on the website. That might be the best way to do it. I might put it on the website and see. Let me see if Ray's got me set up here. We're going to talk about the Cowboys and all kinds of stuff. Okay, he sent me the link over in Twitter. So I'm going to go holler at Ray real quick. Ask him, does he have the Rumble link? So I'm going to get the Rumble link if you guys can hang on. We're going to be talking about much lighter topics than tanks being sent over to the sunflower country. He wants to talk about his Cowboys, I know for sure. I've got a couple things on my mind about just life in general, more philosophical, deep level stuff. And keep in mind, this is going to be Rumble. So when we talk about Rumble, we are going to be uncensored. And when I say uncensored, I'm not a big cusser, meaning topic-wise, which is more important, I think, to me, that we can talk about these topics without saying Russia and sunflower and stuff like that. They are not playing with this conflict. They are almost acting like it is a direct conflict between the U.S. and Russia. If the direct conflict comes out, they will completely suppress First Amendment, just like what's happening in the sunflower country. Zelly went on. If you were part of a journalist, if you were part of any type of journalistic, outlet that didn't fall in line, gone, done, banned. I believe some jailed as well. Yeah, I don't get to do Saturday lives much. I'm gonna try and do more, at least one Saturday or Sunday live. The story is made very good, worth playing today. Wow, so the story part, you're talking about the single player. I did do some of the single player of StarCraft. It's just so much different than playing people, so I never finished it. But I did do some. It was good to practice with it. It gives you the techniques. If you don't know what we're talking about these video games. Let me see if I can just show one because most people probably don't even know what the hell we're talking about. Let me look at a StarCraft 2. I'm waiting for Ray to send me the I'm waiting for Ray to send me the Rumble link. Let's see if I can show, like, this is just a random video. I don't know what kind of swarm this is on StarCraft 2.
Hello everyone and welcome back to another high-level match of StarCraft 2.
So this is the video game, and you mine minerals and you build armies.
Today it's time for a best-of-3 series of Terran versus Zerg. We're in game number 1.
Terran is the human. Zergs are the very fast builds. So you can, if you start with Zerg, you get an army quicker. But they can't last as long. They're easier to destroy. The goal with the Zerg is to swarm on somebody with like 100 different guys, and overcome them, almost like ants. For some reason I was thinking about MacGyver. Anybody remember the first episode of MacGyver? I know I'm dating myself. I believe it was the pilot episode of MacGyver. One of the first episodes, a dude got attacked by like 1,000,000 ants and got unlived. But like a bunch of bees or something swarming on somebody.
Find ourselves on Grassvan. Spotting right here in the top left-hand corner.
Oh, wow, that's cool.
Terran SCVs from Germany. We have Hero Marine.
Graphics way better in StarCraft 2, of course, than StarCraft 1.
His opponent in the opposite corner with the blue Zerg drones from...
CGB, now you're going to have me watching for the rest of the day, like StarCraft 2 stuff, and getting me back into that. Man, once you get into these type of battles... games, what are they called? Are they strategy? Oh, I'm not even sharing my screen. What am I doing? What are they called? Strategy sharing? What are they called? It's a very common thing. I just forgot. But they're strategy war games.
Italy, we're looking at Raynar's main hatchery. Alrighty, Reaper has already gone across the map. This game, it started off with a very normal strategy from the both of them. Quick expansion here from the Zerg, and the same can be said for our Terran player. He ended up getting a single Zergling kill so far. Can he get the Creep Tumor? Ooh, that is nice. Getting that Creep Tumor is, of course, going to slow down the Zerg quite a bit.
Okay, so I'm going to actually watch some of those. I miss the time when I used to have time to play those type of games. Let me put the Rumble link in there, and then I'm going to jump over. So I'm going to be out right now for the raid discussion. You can hop on over. We're going to be talking about a whole bunch of... This is the birthday stream for Mr. Ray Studios. Hop on over. Link is in the chat. It is in the chat.